They called humanity's proposal a joke. When the Terran representative stood before the Galactic Council to present the concept of stealth-based starships powered by exotic dark matter compression fields, the laughter echoed across the chamber. Hundreds of alien dignitaries from all corners of the galaxy scoffed openly. The Dravari Minister of Defense spat his drink and mocked. The humans wish to vanish from our sensors? Let them vanish from relevance instead. Others chimed in with similar jeers. It wasn't the first time humanity had been dismissed, but this time, it was public, and it was brutal. The Council had grown used to seeing Earth as an unpredictable, emotionally volatile race, brilliant in bursts, dangerous in desperation, but lacking the refinement of older civilizations. When Terran scientists claimed they had discovered a way to nullify detection across all known spectra, it sounded like a child boasting they had tamed lightning. It was absurd, unworthy of serious discussion. But Earth wasn't boasting. It was warning. The demonstration was meant to earn respect, a chance to be seen as equals. A single prototype ship, the Vanta 01, drifted silently across a test corridor rigged with over 1,000 sensor nodes, trackers, thermals, magnetic field readers, quantum motion detectors, and even rare-phase tachyon sweepers. Not one of them triggered. Not one could confirm the ship's location. The footage played in the council chamber showed nothing but an empty black corridor. Still, they laughed. A Zentari envoy quipped. Congratulations, humans. You've mastered non-existence. The council roared with amusement. Even the chairman cracked a grin. The Terran representative stood alone, silent, humiliated, but not broken. On Earth, however, that silence grew heavier. The laughter didn't reach the war rooms. It didn't touch the underground research facilities buried beneath frozen poles or the shipyards hidden beyond the Kuiper Belt. While the council giggled, humanity got to work. Within months, blueprints turned to hardware. Within a year, test platforms had evolved into fully operational vessels. The Spectre class was born, not just invisible to detection, but to light, gravity, and radio resonance. Each ship bore an artificial event horizon, a trick of dark matter curvature that rendered them optically null and sensor deaf. Even time near them felt wrong, like they shouldn't exist at all. Commanders weren't trained, they were reborn. Recruited from the most mentally disciplined factions of Terran forces, indoctrinated into silence, and hard-coded with protocols written in languages unknown even to Earth's allies. Each crew member operated under blackout rules. No signals, no chatter, no ego. By the second year, the council stopped laughing. Not because they believed, but because ships started disappearing. The first was a VRL escort fleet, 12 ships tasked with patrolling the neutral band near Terran-adjacent space. The fleet vanished without a trace. No distress signals, no wreckage, no black box return. The council blamed spatial anomalies. The VRL blamed pirates. Then came the Zentari cargo haulers. 27 freighters lost within a standard week, all on trajectories that brushed against the Terran border. Their tracking data ended abruptly, mid-transmission, with no sign of violence or error. The freighters simply ceased to exist. Whispers started. Terran tech is untraceable. They've built ghosts. Something is watching from the dark. Still, officially, the council remained dismissive. Coincidence. Malfunction. Space phenomena. But in the closed-door chambers, fear began to replace arrogance. Humanity remained publicly silent. No declarations. No denials. No claims of responsibility. Just a chilling quietness in their diplomatic channels. The Terran embassy closed without explanation. The Council's probes, sent to investigate Earth's border zones, never returned. No signal loss. Just nothing. In response, the Council attempted an incursion, not a full attack, just a bold survey fleet of 50 multi-species warships, outfitted with enhanced sensor suites and cloaked under diplomatic jurisdiction. The fleet entered a void sector near Neptune's orbit, broadcasting their peaceful intent. For minutes after entry, every ship flatlined. Council analysts recovered a single burst transmission, white noise interspersed with a low-frequency signal modulated in human Morse code. It translated to one word: observe. Panic seeped in. Allies began requesting evacuation from systems adjacent to Terran space. Trade routes were recharted. Long-range comms were filled with superstition and fear. No one could confirm what the humans had built, only that something now lived in the void, and it hunted without sound. Back on Earth, the project was renamed. No longer a stealth initiative. It became a doctrine. A new frontier of warfare based not on strength or speed, but on complete absence. The silent war had begun, and only one side knew it was being fought. The Spectre fleet grew in number. Faster than light ghost drives allowed instantaneous relocation between gravity wells. Planetary surveillance arrays on Earth monitored the Council's movements in real time, but no transmissions were made. Humanity waited. Every lost Council ship was a lesson. Every arrogant assumption was noted. Every laugh was remembered. Now, only one thing echoed louder than the Council's fading confidence. The question they didn't dare say aloud. What happens when the ghosts decide to speak? The first official report of the missing Viral patrol fleet was dismissed within hours. 12 ships, led by Commander Trask of the Dominion Guard, vanished while conducting a sweep near Sector K9, an uninhabited border region adjacent to Terran-monitored space. No distress signal. No emergency beacon. Just sudden, total silence. The Council filed it under brevitic interference, blaming unstable microsingularities common to that region. But those anomalies had never taken a fleet before. 4 days later, a Zentari trade convoy en route to the same sector disappeared. 27 vessels, each carrying billions in refined plasma cells and medical-grade neutrino compounds, simply ceased communication mid-jump. Unlike the VRL incident, this convoy had been in direct contact with its homeworld. The last message received wasn't a mayday, but a question. Did we just pass something? Seconds later, all transmissions cut. No signs of conflict. No fragments. The sector was searched with tachyon sweeps, phase sensors, and exotic matter tracers. Nothing was found. 2 disappearances could be coincidence. But the third was different. A Scarred scout vessel, monitoring Terran fringe activity from deep space, managed to deploy a probe before going dark. The probe transmitted for less than a minute before its signal degraded into static. A single image made it through, grainy, distorted, but unmistakable, the shadow of a ship with no heat, no light, and no reflection. The probe's onboard AI tried to enhance the silhouette but failed. Metadata analysis revealed something more disturbing. Its positional data had shifted, mid-transmission, by 0.4 light seconds. Something had moved the probe. Instantly. Without force. Without warning. By now, the Galactic Council could no longer ignore the pattern. They convened a high-security meeting, restricted to military tacticians and species with confirmed deep space fleets. Earth was not invited. "We are under coordinated attack," declared High Strategist Vorn of the Lystran Conclave. "Unknown force. No demands. No survivors. No signals." Some believed it was an ancient AI awakening. Others whispered about forbidden dark technologies used in violation of the Preservation Accord. But one word kept surfacing, reluctantly spoken in hushed tones: humans. The idea was dismissed at first. Terran military strength was known, but not extraordinary. Their fleets were formidable, but not invincible. No major engagements had occurred since Earth's induction into the galactic community. And yet, some began to recall the stealth demonstration. The one everyone had laughed at. Internal records were reviewed. Ship logs from the Terran trials re-examined. Dozens of Council species had attended. None had detected a thing. Not even mass displacement. Not even gravimetric wake. It had seemed too perfect. And that was the problem. Soon, other signs began to emerge. Trade networks near Terran space started experiencing irregularities. Refueling stations reported unexplained power drains, as if something had leached energy from their fusion cores. drones sent to investigate returned with corrupted memory banks. Some didn't return at all. Then came the fourth incident, a full battle group from the Car Enclave. 50 warships, armed with experimental long-range sensor disruptors, quantum beacon systems, and autonomous defense turrets. Their mission: patrol the neutral zone, document anomalies, and return. The fleet entered the region at 0300 Galactic Standard. At 0304, all 50 ships disappeared from the Enclave's tactical network. Only one automated capsule made it back. It wasn't part of the fleet. It was a message pod. No propulsion, no guidance, just floating in council space. Inside was a piece of alien hull plating, burned, melted, twisted. On it, etched by plasma in perfect Terran lettering, asterisk. Don't follow. Asterisk. Panic began to spread, not among civilians, but within the command corps of the most powerful civilizations. This wasn't war. It was disintegration. The enemy wasn't showing force. It was demonstrating control. Desperation led to speculation. How could a species previously considered inferior develop such absolute stealth? How could their ships move without detection, strike without sound, erase fleets without evidence? One theory suggested they had mastered dark matter layering, surrounding their ships with negative mass envelopes that bent every form of radiation and gravity. Another posited they were using phased quantum tunneling, bypassing conventional space entirely. But no theory explained the psychological warfare. No theory explained how entire fleets could vanish with not even a data burst to mark their end. Council intelligence services intercepted encrypted chatter from Terran civilian networks. One phrase recurred across intercepted broadcasts, graffiti, digital forums, and even music, asterisk. We are the silence between stars. Asterisk. It wasn't propaganda. It was identity. The Council initiated emergency protocols. Border monitoring around Earth was quadrupled. Surveillance drones were deployed en masse. Probes launched into Terran outer space by the Alari Technate returned nothing. They didn't detect humans, but they also didn't detect each other. Some disappeared mid-mission. Others returned with footage looping endlessly, a single still frame of empty stars, as if the camera had been frozen in time. Attempts to open diplomatic channels with Earth were met with automated replies. Terran Union communications offline for scheduled recalibration. Standard, routine, and deeply unsettling in context. Earth wasn't reacting like a power under threat. It was acting like a power in control. Amid the growing chaos, one simple truth settled over the Council. They had no idea what humanity was capable of anymore. Ships were still disappearing. Not just military fleets, but survey vessels, smugglers, black market traders, even pirate ships. The void near Terran space was widening, becoming known among fringe travelers as the Event Horizon, a place where signals died. A region of silence that grew larger every month. And yet, not a single declaration of war had been issued. Not a single act of open aggression. The humans weren't attacking. They were erasing. And still, the question remained, why? Why now? Why in silence? The answers were not in Council databanks, not in intercepted transmissions, and not in the ashes of lost fleets. The answers were hidden in the shadows, aboard ships that didn't exist, crewed by people no one could see, built by a species that had grown tired of being underestimated. And soon the galaxy would realize. This was just the beginning. The Spectre class wasn't humanity's answer to war. It was humanity's answer to irrelevance. Designed in silence, perfected without applause, the fleet operated with a single doctrine: presence is weakness. Every ship in the program was built not to exist, not to be known, and not to be remembered. Captain Nyla Rourke had no records in any official Terran database. Her ship, the Phantom Wraith, did not appear on logs, rosters, or manifests. It hovered between stars in the blind spots of the universe, invisible even to the human eye. Crew movements were neural-triggered. No sound. No light. Every corridor within the ship absorbed photons, erased echoes, and nullified heat signatures. It was a tomb that moved, and she was its voice. Their targets were never chosen at random. Every fleet that vanished had a pattern, an approach vector, a scan angle, a proximity violation. Humanity wasn't indiscriminately erasing ships. It was sending a message through strategic silence. When someone crossed a line, the Spectres responded. Not with warnings. With finality. On board the Wraith, missions were issued through haptic signal bursts coded in phase-locked micro-vibrations. Language was a vulnerability. Emotion, a liability. Every order, every decision, reduced to motion and response. Rourke didn't command like a naval officer. She executed like an algorithm. One mission log described a Council reconnaissance fleet near the rings of Enceladus. They approached slowly, scanning subspace currents and attempting triangulation on gravitational lensing anomalies. They deployed pulse beacons and counter-stealth netting. For 10 minutes, they saw nothing. On the 11th minute, ships began to implode. No explosions. No energy spikes. Just ships collapsing inward as if space itself had grown teeth. Survivors described it as being swallowed by the dark. One captain's final log was found in a drifting escape pod. Asterisk. We didn't see them. We didn't hear them. We just stopped. Asterisk. Every Spectre ship carried a single form of identification, a synthetic artifact called a null sigil. It couldn't be tracked, tagged, or reproduced. When found floating after an operation, it was understood to mean, you were warned. These sigils became the most feared object in space. Council officers who received one often resigned. Some were institutionalized. A few disappeared entirely. Humanity had done what no species had achieved in galactic history. It weaponized uncertainty. Every fleet loss, every sensor anomaly, every drifting derelict fed into a growing myth. The Spectres weren't just ships, they were omens. They didn't need to destroy planets or broadcast threats. They let silence build the fear for them. Behind the veil, Terran scientists refined the Spectre doctrine further. Black boxes became obsolete, too detectable. Instead, every ship's memory was quantum-locked and only readable through biometric entanglement. Hulls were composed of dark reactive nanocomposites that adjusted reflectivity and density at the quantum level, rendering them intangible to any known scan. Even gravity couldn't find them unless they allowed it. The Wraith's weapons never fired first. They never needed to. Instead, their presence alone caused most fleets to self-destruct. On one operation, a Centauri destroyer picked up a 1-degree fluctuation in cosmic background radiation, a minor anomaly. But someone on board recognized the pattern. Within 7 minutes, the destroyer detonated its own core. When the Council questioned the crew beforehand, their only statement was, asterisk. We saw the blink. Asterisk. That was what the Spectres had become, a blink in space. A cold absence where life had been. And it wasn't just about tactics. The Spectres knew their true advantage wasn't just in being invisible, it was in being incomprehensible. Every other species relied on perception, detection, logic. Humanity discarded all of it. They became a paradox in motion, ships that moved without movement, struck without force, and erased without trace. A VRL engineer once described his encounter with a Spectre as a nightmare while awake. His ship had been passing near an asteroid belt when every light dimmed, every console froze, and a hum entered his skull. He felt as if someone stood beside him whispering nothing. When he awoke, the ship's bridge was empty. No bodies. No logs. Just him, and a null sigil on the console. The Council began offering bounties for any data recovered from a Spectre encounter. No one claimed them. Every drone, every spy satellite, every long-range scope deployed to detect the Spectres either failed or disappeared. Some came back broadcasting their own destruction on loop, hundreds of fake death scenarios encoded in false footage, planted by human AIs to drown analysts in noise. The Spectres weren't just hiding. They were controlling the narrative. Shaping fear. Dictating what others believed, what they saw, and what they would never understand. Captain Rourke once received an unsanctioned transmission from a former ally species, a plea for a ceasefire. "We did not mean to provoke you," it said. "Please identify your demands." Her only response was to activate the silence beacon. A device that emitted no energy, no wave, no data, just a dead zone that consumed the transmission itself. The Council received nothing. But the sender never contacted Earth again. By now, Council doctrine had shifted. Any route within 10 parsecs of human sectors was considered off-limits. Automated warnings played on repeat. Navigation into Terran territory is not advised. Risk of non-recovery, absolute. Even the pirates stayed away. Even smugglers turned back. And still, no Spectre ship had ever been seen directly. Not truly. Even the best reconstructed images were vague outlines, suggestions of structure, shadows pretending to be metal. Council simulations couldn't replicate them. AI prediction models failed to account for their strategies. Military analysts coined a term, event-class ghost incursion. Translation, attack by something you can't see, stop, or survive. In less than 2 years, the Spectre program had made an entire galaxy reconsider its definition of power. Not firepower. Not numbers. Not domination. Control. Of perception. Of presence. Of fear. And in the heart of that control stood ships like the Phantom Wraith, guided by minds like Rourke's, flawless, silent, and unyielding. For now, the galaxy held its breath. Because no one knew how many Spectres existed. No one knew where they were. And worst of all, no one knew if they were already inside. The Council's illusion of control shattered when Spectre-related disappearances reached triple digits. Entire fleets were vanishing. No matter the size, species, or defense systems, the results were the same: utter silence. What had started as isolated incidents evolved into a systematic pattern of annihilation. The Council's best minds gathered to find a flaw in the data, a weakness to exploit, but none existed. Every trace led to nothing. Every theory ended in contradiction. A state of quiet panic overtook the core worlds. Trade convoys rerouted to avoid any sector with known Terran proximity. Civilian colonies demanded relocation. Several member species openly questioned the Council's ability to protect its constituents. Behind the curtain of bureaucracy, emergency war protocols were enacted. A fleet was assembled, no longer an observation force, but a full armada meant to deliver a message of strength. Over 500 ships from 30 species, each loaded with the most advanced counter-stealth systems in existence, gathered on the edge of Terran space. They entered with calculated caution, cloaked in layered sensor grids, covered by long-range support vessels, and accompanied by temporal disruptors and gravitic distortion probes. They broadcast no aggression. They made no direct threats. Their presence alone was the message, enough. For exactly 9 minutes, everything was quiet. On the 10th minute, the fleet began to go dark, starting from the outer edges inward. One by one, vessels lost comms, then power, then life. No weapon signatures. No impacts. No enemy vessels. Just silence crawling through the formation like a disease. Entire cruisers blinked out of existence, as though space itself rejected them. Crews on board experienced temporal anomalies, loops of soundless seconds, systems showing negative time values, and then nothing. Within 20 minutes, all contact was lost. The fleet ceased to exist. No debris. No distress beacons. The largest gathering of military power in modern galactic history, erased without a fight. 3 days later, something arrived at the Galactic Council's central station. A single ship. Small. Unmarked. No engine trails. No communication. It simply appeared in orbit, drifting. Inside was no crew. No lights. Only one thing: the hulls of multiple Council vessels, fused together in a spiral, with their sigils scorched and overwritten by a single word in Terran script: asterisk. Enough. Asterisk. For the first time in centuries, a mandatory galaxy-wide blackout was enforced. Media was censored. Trade reports suppressed. The Council didn't want the public to know the truth. Humanity wasn't just a threat. Humanity was already in control. Species previously hostile toward Earth withdrew from disputed zones. Alliances fractured under the pressure of fear. The Dominion of Jareth suspended all military operations within 50 light-years of Terran space. The Kar Enclave signed a non-aggression pact, unrequested. Even the isolationist Varnaccord, who hadn't left their system in 6 millennia, sent emissaries bearing tribute to Earth. Behind closed doors, panic became desperation. New technologies were proposed to counter the specters: tachyon inversion cannons, temporal fragmentation grids, psychic interference fields, but all were theoretical. None had any data to test against. The specters left nothing to study. And that was their greatest weapon. The Council's premier intelligence agency launched Project Obsidian, an internal operation to develop anti-ghost protocols. Dozens of spies were inserted into Terran sectors using stealth liners and fake civilian identities. Every single operative disappeared within hours of crossing the threshold. No alerts. No hostilities. No remains. In one final act of desperation, the Council deployed its oldest surviving war asset, an ancient sentient dreadnought named Axiom Prime, designed during the War of the Ten Suns. Over 70 kilometers in length, it had never been defeated. It carried its own AI fleet, quantum-entangled defenses, and temporal armor. Axiom Prime approached Earth's gravity well at subliminal speed. As it crossed into the shadow of Saturn, all of its escort ships went silent. The dreadnought continued alone. It never reached Jupiter. 72 seconds after its last course update, the AI stopped transmitting. Not cut off, terminated. Backup transponders activated but returned corrupted data, a signal embedded with human language code loops. Analysts tried for hours to parse it. Eventually, it was translated, asterisk. Your strength is history. Your time is memory. Your presence is irrelevant. Asterisk. Council records show that following Axiom Prime's disappearance, 2/3 of High Command took emergency leave. 10 resigned. 1 attempted suicide. The message had been clear. No defense would work. No confrontation would be allowed. Earth was done playing by the rules. All of it without a single official declaration of war. No invasion. No demands. No fleet parades. Just quiet, deliberate erasure. Not out of malice, but calculation. Humanity wasn't seeking conquest. It didn't want dominance or territory. It simply wanted to be left alone, and it had built the ultimate deterrent to ensure that outcome. The specters weren't a weapon. They were a doctrine. The embodiment of consequence. And now, entire species began redefining their galactic maps. New cartography documents labeled Terran-controlled zones not with colors or coordinates, but with warning symbols. Transit networks rerouted around Earth. Unmanned drones were prohibited from entering human-perceived regions. Blacklists were circulated. Children in distant worlds were warned with bedtime stories. Be good, or the silence will take you. The Council met again in private. Only 3 topics were discussed: survival, containment, and fear. No one mentioned retaliation. No one even considered attack. The dominant question had changed. It was no longer, what is humanity doing? It was now, what will they do next? And no one wanted to find out the answer. The Council sent a message into the void, not through diplomats or envoys, but through a directed broadcast aimed at Terran space, repeating one simple phrase in every known language: we wish to speak. It was a plea, not a demand. And for 6 standard days there was no answer. Not even static. The silence stretched so long it became unbearable. Then, on the 7th day, something arrived. Not a ship. Not a fleet. A transmission. Untraceable in origin, unbound by time lag, it appeared simultaneously across every Council display, every private screen, even personal comm devices. A blank screen. A pause. Then words. Asterisk. We are listening. Asterisk. The chamber went still. Dozens of species, leaders of entire civilizations, sat frozen. No one knew who would speak first. Eventually, the chairman of the council stood and responded, We acknowledge the events surrounding your territory. We regret past offenses. What are your terms? For 40 seconds, nothing. Then the message resumed. Our space is not to be approached. No ships, no drones, no signals. Breach and you will not return. The chairman cleared his throat. Understood. Does the Terran Union intend to expand? No. We intend to be left alone. Violate that intent, and you will disappear from history. The message ended. No demands for tribute. No reparations. No request for apologies. Just a clear line drawn, one the galaxy had already begun to fear. The council debated for days behind closed doors. There was no resistance. Every species voted unanimously to recognize the Terran demarcation zone. Enforcement of border proximity protocols began immediately. Trade routes were rewritten, colonies relocated, and treaties redrafted. It was not diplomacy. It was compliance. And yet, the strangest part wasn't the fear. It was the realization that humanity had no interest in galactic dominance. It did not care for control, territory, or power structures. It simply wanted peace, enforced by a shadow fleet so powerful it didn't need to fire a single shot. The Spectres had made their mark, not through warfare, but through consequence. The new galactic maps were updated. The sectors surrounding Earth were colored in matte black, with a single designation, restricted space, entry equals erasure. The phrase became law. Even the most lawless factions obeyed. Pirates vanished if they dared test the boundary. Smugglers turned back before reaching visual contact. Explorers deleted their own coordinates if they drifted too close. One by one, the galaxy fell quiet. Back on Earth, the Spectre project was no longer spoken about in military terms. It was absorbed into the cultural core of the Terran Union. Recruits didn't apply. They were chosen. Missions were not assigned. They were felt. No parades, no medals, no recognition. Only silence and service. Spectre captains operated in a space beyond politics. Their identities were never recorded. Their victories never logged. They didn't seek glory. They existed for one reason: to ensure humanity would never be mocked again. Not for fear. Not for pride. But because they had seen what laughter had cost them, and they would never allow that cost to return. In the years that followed, Spectre sightings became even rarer. Some believed the ships had been decommissioned. Others thought they were watching from further out now, deeper in the void, where no one dared venture. But then, anomalies still occurred. Fleets still vanished. Just fewer now, because fewer dared provoke the silence. Among Terran citizens, the Spectres became myth. Children asked if they were real. Parents whispered that they were. And every now and then, someone would find a null sigil, drifting alone in the void, or embedded in rock on some forgotten moon. A reminder. And for the rest of the galaxy, the reminder was clear. Humanity never conquered. It didn't have to. It simply proved that it could not be stopped. Not with fleets. Not with threats. Not with time. They laughed at human stealth tech. And now they navigate the stars in fear, knowing that if the shadows stir, it's already too late. Because in the end, humanity did not become the dominant force in the galaxy by being seen. It became the most feared by disappearing first, and taking everything with it.